Hello, welcome to the channel. Today we're gonna take a brief overview at my modded Rampage. I believe this blaster is almost a decade old, maybe more. I think it was released back in 2011. Now, I had this blaster since I was in middle school. I painted it, I modded it, and a decade later, I revisited this blaster and I took upon myself and gave it a public safe paint job. I took some inspirations from Gear Up. I absolutely love the Gear Up colorway. But anyways, let's crack this blaster and see what's inside. Okay, I just got this blaster unscrewed. Now let's clamshell it open. I printed a soy jack iron sight. I think it's a little bit too low, but yeah, for the memes. So, a little bit of history. I did mod this back in middle school, and I did not know that you're not supposed to dry fire when the air restrictor has been taken out. So, just like any kid, I dry fired the hell out of this blaster. It destroyed the plunger rod. If I had to mod this blaster, that means I need to print a plunger rod. These Retalloid plunger heads, they tend to break right in the lips because they were pretty thin. I printed these in polycarbonate, and that's what I used in this Rampage. Now, I did notice that Rampages and other Retalloids had somewhat similar internals to a Retaliator. So I did test fit a Retaliator plunger tube. I tried to fit it inside the Rampage plunger housing. It fits somewhat. It does need some sanding. It's kind of like a proof of concept that Rampages are indeed Retaliators. So what I did with this Rampage, I'm gonna take the assembly out. For the bolt sled, I don't believe there's anyone designing an aftermarket bolt sled for the Rampage, which is a shame because these things break so easily. I had to put some CA glue here and then reinforce it again with some epoxy putty, and then it also cracked right here. So this Rampage bolt sled tends to crack right in the middle because the force is right on the bottom where the priming bar is, and then it kind of tries to break from the bolt sled because this side is going that way and this side is fighting it. So it will crack eventually with heavier springs. I also did some reinforcing with epoxy putty, and the only other thing I did was actually install a worker full-length breech because I still want to run full lengths, and I also want to have the liberty to shotgun load 2 half-length darts. And yes, even in 2024, I still use full lengths. And this is the plunger head. I printed it in PC, polycarbonate. Also had to epoxy putty the dead space here. And it had some catching issues, so I sanded down this lip in the plunger head, and after that it catch reliably. And for the main part of this blaster, now because the stock plunger tube was cracked, so I decided to order a worker Retaliator metal plunger tube. Its dimensions were slightly larger than stock, so there was a lot of Dremel work, there was a lot of epoxy putty work, and as of right now, with 7 kilogram springs, it held up. So if you want to attempt this mod, and I highly recommend you not to do it unless you have a cracked plunger tube, is first you have to sand down the inner part of this, and you have to also sand down this part right here. Now, note that I sanded it down almost paper thin, so I had to make this epoxy putty supports. I also had to make a blowout guard out of epoxy putty. Now that this plunger tube fits in, I can slam fire all I want because this is metal, so it won't crack. The only other problem is that the stock Retalloid kind of plunger heads, they don't fit well inside of these metal plunger tubes because the internal diameter is actually slightly larger. So I had to grab a larger O-ring, and as of right now, the O-ring is actually a little bit too wide, so it's actually causing drag. I even lubed this up like a ton, and it's kind of draggy. With a 7 kilogram spring, you're supposed to get somewhere around 120, 130 FPS. But with this setup right here, I'm only getting around maybe 80, 90. I don't actually own a chronograph, so I can't confirm, but the shots were landing somewhere around 40, 50 most of them, 50 feet. So yeah, not very impressive, but hey, at least it's firing. So yeah, that's it. The only other thing I had to do was probably fill in some hot glue supports for future proofing this blaster, and maybe some hot glue supports right here where the plunger housing sits. And I believe I didn't do any shell cutting, I think. So I guess that's it. That's the Rampage with a retaliator internals. I might try this with this custom spring I made. It's 1.8 wire gauge with a length of, I think, 100 millimeters with 12 coils. So I was supposed to order one that imitates a 9 kilogram spring. I think this is somewhat similar to a 9 kilogram spring. It's slightly tougher than a 7 kilogram spring. Let's see. Oh, and I think I have to make some plunger padding. All right then, let's make some plunger padding. I have here some silicone rubber, though these aren't as soft as some plunger paddings. I have to make some ridges in order for it to flex a little bit. All right, so we got our plunger padding, had the ridges, so it does give, it does have some flex, so when the plunger bashes into the plunger tube, it doesn't destroy the whole blaster. Now let's fit it inside. See. All right, it's fitting. Just gotta push this down, and voila, you've just padded your plunger tube. Now let's test how much flex it has. Maybe not so much, but something is better than nothing. Now it's good practice to always lube your internals to keep it nice and smooth. And I guess that shall be enough. You can further spread it with the plunger head. Alright, so we're gonna assemble this with, I think this is a 9, a 10, I'm not really sure. Also, fun fact, this catch spring is actually procured from the Nexus or Dart Zone mag adapters. Those do have pretty tough springs. I switched out this catch spring for the mag spring, and it's working really, really well. I even used it in my retaliator, and it helps with catching. All right, we have it all assembled. Let's just put the top shell on, and I'm gonna try firing with this tougher spring on. Now you want to insert this spring last, so it won't go flying anywhere. All right, she's all buttoned up. Now for the cherry on top, the Wojak sight. See if it primes. Oh my god, that's crazy prime. It's crazy prime. Oh my, it's not catching. All right, it's not catching. Let's see. Oh man, it's not catching. All right, so the 9-10-ish kilogram spring wasn't catching, so I'm just gonna stick with the 7. I think in order for that heavier spring to catch, I'd have to modify this file a bit. So this lip right here, it will be taller, and the catch needs to be I think circular, so it has more catching real estate. So anyways, let's see if the 7 still wants to catch. Yeah, it will catch. It will catch just fine. See it firing. Now this does have the issue of a sensitive catch. If I hit this, it will fire. So that definitely is a problem, but I haven't had any issues in games. It will catch and it will fire when I want to. And all right, so that was let's see. All right, so it closes, and let's see, it's fire. It fires. Yep, it fires. So I guess that's it. So we'll see you in the range. Okay, so we are now in the range. Apologies for the vertical video. And we're gonna fire some shots, and we're gonna measure how far the distance is. Okay, we got shots varying in the 30-foot range, 40, and most of them landed in the 50-foot range. So here's some accuracy test. Again, apologies for the vertical video. I'm standing 50 foot from the blaster, and I'm wearing eye protection just in case. The darts are dropping a little bit too quickly. I think they're landing around the 40-foot mark. And if you notice, the darts tend to fly to the left. I think that's due to the faux rifling in the stock barrel. Yeah, let's go back to the studio and I'll give you my final thoughts. So, what did I think of this blaster? Well, this blaster holds a special place in my heart. This is my very first Nerf blaster, and I had a lot of fun with it when I was a kid. Now, a decade later, I'm still having fun with this. Yeah, I guess that's it. Hope you enjoy the video. Happy modding!